Well, the first thing I do want to say is I'm actually Wendy H. Jones. So if you look up Wendy Jones on Amazon, you're going to get a bit of a shock because she writes different books to me. She wrote a book called The Sex Lives of English Women, and that has nothing to do with me. So I'm Wendy H. Jones. And yes, I come from a different background in terms of writing. I was in the military for 23 years and was a nursing officer. So I'm Major Wendy H. Jones. So there we go. So I've always been a writer. I've written academic textbooks because I was the head of pre-registration nurse education for the Army, Navy and Air Force. And then I was in a university and had to produce textbooks. But I came to novel writing when I was ill. I was ill with my lungs. If I stood up, my oxygen levels dropped. If I was sat down, they were fine. Well, what's a good thing to do when you're sitting down? Right. It's boring watching daytime TV. So I came to novel writing, and I started with my first series, the Detective Inspector Shona McKenzie Mysteries. There are now 8 books in that series. And then I came to write Cosy Mysteries, because I like a cosy mystery. Then I decided that I would, in the meantime, I got 2 publishing contracts for children's picture books and for children's picture books and for young adult mysteries. It looks like we're about to go to book 3 of the children's picture book, the Bertie the Buffalo Mysteries. Bertie the Buffalo Mysteries, they're not mysteries, Bertie the Buffalo picture books. And there's a soft toy and a colouring book to go with that as well. So that's quite fun. And then I decided I would become a publisher because, of course, why wouldn't I? As if I haven't got enough writing all those books, I might as well add something else into the mix. So I decided to do cozy mystery anthologies, and I publish other authors. They're traditional contracts. They get contracts to write a short story. They get royalties. And this is the latest one, which is what I'm going to read from tonight. Did you have any other questions, Rohan?
As a military nurse, did you see horrible things that have stayed with you for life and that really deeply affected you? I imagine you probably did.
Well, I did, but not in the way you would think, because I was a children's nurse. So I was a children's nurse in the military, and so I did see things that I wouldn't want to possibly repeat because it involved children, but I never actually went to war. So the only medal I've got is the Queen's Silver Jubilee Medal or Golden Jubilee Medal or some medal for the Queen having an anniversary. And that was it. So I just swanned around the world leading the life of Riley as a nurse. It was great. I went to Hong Kong, Gibraltar, Cyprus, Germany, Holland, where else? Israel. I spent a year in St. John's Ophthalmic Hospital in Jerusalem working with the Palestinians, providing eye care, because I'm an eye-trained nurse and a children's trained nurse and an adult nurse. So I just kind of swanned around. But I did see some awful things, and I did do my training at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, where you do see a lot of grief. But I didn't see any wars. Listen, here's a story, okay? I nearly went to war. So I was an in-service training officer at Dutch Kent Military Hospital, which meant I was in an office, and the matron knocked my door and he said, I'm warning you in advance, you're going to Iraq. No, Bosnia. And I went, I'm going to Bosnia, okay. He said, but I'm telling you in advance because you need to go and get your kit because you're only 2 foot nothing. So you need to go and you get issued with a new kit if you're going to war. So I went and got all my kit. I was all ready. I had my lipstick packed. I was ready to go. I was off to war. And then Part 1 orders came out. My name wasn't on it. So I went into his office and said, my name's not on Part 1 orders, sir. And he said, don't be so stupid. So he took it off me, looked, and he went, oh. So he dragged me into the office, the main office, and they said, where's Major Jones's, name? And they went, oh, we forgot to type it on, sir. Well, Part 1 order tomorrow. And he went, oh, don't bother. There's enough people going anyway. And I was ready to go. So I nearly went to war. There you go. And that just shows you how prepared our military are. And they're just like, there you go. So I write Cosy Culinary Crime. It came out 4 weeks ago, and it's where crime meets cooking. And there are 11 stories and 12 recipes. One of the authors couldn't stick to the brief, and she happened to be a really good friend of mine, so I let her away with it. And she put 2 recipes in her book, in her story, so I let her away with putting the 2 recipes in. So every story has a recipe to go with it because it was something that was mentioned in the story. And the other thing was that there were her dead mother's recipes, so I didn't like to say to her, no, you're all right. So I thought I better let her have them. So my story is called A Piping Hot Murder. Now, the issue is I've got 7 minutes to do it, and I think I might give you the whole story in 7 minutes. So I might just give you a teaser and then do a bit of somebody else's story. Would that be all right, Safina, or am I cheating? I say the story might not take... It might only take 7 minutes for the entire story. Right. So I might do half of one story and half of another. Okay, you've already done 6 minutes. I've got 6 minutes. Oh, yeah, you've got 6 minutes left. I'm talking too much. I'll carry on talking. I'll carry on with the story. So mine is called Piping Hot Murder. At the local game, Highland Games, high-end caterer Kirsty Callum's menu doesn't include murder. The local laird and her former mentor is found dead with hot treacle in his throat and her piping bag at the scene. The local police think it's accidental, but Kirsty is not so sure. Kirsty sets out to catch the killer hiding behind tartan, tartlets and old grudges. Will she succeed, or will the games be ruined? I have to say, nobody could ruin a Highland Games, you know. It doesn't matter if it's dead bodies, we'd just step over them, but that's a minor detail. So, when you consider pipes, drums and all things Scottish, death doesn't usually come skittling into your mind performing a Highland fling with merry abandon. Highland Games, the length and breadth of Scotland, are places of laughter, dancing, music and of course competition. From tossing of cabers and flinging of hammers to piping and strathspey reels, the world is out in force, cheering on their favourite competitors and groaning when it doesn't go as planned. Tripping over a dead body, a dead laird, kills the mood instantly. Death was far from the thoughts of Kirsty Callum when she looked out the window that morning to a sky so blue it could be the Caribbean. The loch, shrugging off its usual steely grey, had donned its best outlook and sparkled with iridescent light. For once, months of planning would not be ruined by rain, monsoon-level rain, the type seen in a typical Scottish summer. Instead of basking in this fortuitous turn of fate, the thought of all she had to do catapulted her from supine to vertical, and she hurried towards the bathroom. Taking her high-end mobile restaurant, the Stag's Fork, to the games was a whole new level of responsibility. She was to be running the VIP restaurant in a huge marquee. She'd had the menu, Scottish fusion cuisine, planned for months and outlined the day to her staff in minute detail. But with temperamental chefs, when weren't they, and waitresses who thought a broken fingernail was the ultimate disaster, she had to be on top of everything from the word go. Go meant now, silly o'clock on a glorious Saturday morning. Luckily, most of the prep had been done the day before, and the catering van, all 26 feet of top-of-the-range, gleaming units and equipment, was already in place. By the time she got there, her sous chef should have her commis chef beavering away, preparing for the day ahead. Her events manager should be fussing over every minute detail of an already immaculately decorated marquee, now doubling as a restaurant. They were also setting up ready to host the prestigious Golden Ski and Do Awards, Scotland's most prestigious cooking competition. What could possibly go wrong when every step from unpacking the marquees to packing them up again at late o'clock had been meticulously planned right down to the last nanosecond? Never mind a minute-by-minute planner, she had a second-by-second planner, and her staff would not dare to step to the left or right of it. The activity on her arrival gave new meaning to the word bustling and set it on track to be hailed as frenzied. While shoulders straightened when she appeared, no one stopped what they were doing or said anything more than a passing "hello, chef." Not only was the sun in the heavens, but all was well in her catering world. Donning an apron, she immediately set to preparing her signature Scotch treacle tartlets before popping them into a preheated oven. A feverish 20 minutes later, a timer went off and she checked the oven. Perfect. She lifted the tartlets from the oven and prepared to let them cool. The heavenly scent of fresh baking filled the air, making her drool. The smell was as nectar from the gods and informed her they'd got it bang on. She wiped her hands on a cloth. Fancy tart for a tart. Everyone in earshot kept stum, but if dirty looks were anything to go by, they were horrified, bordering on murderous. The speaker, Alistair Drummond, was her previous mentor, but by a weird twist of fate involving several mysterious accidents, he was now the local laird. The mentor-mentee relationship did not end well, so her gob was well and truly smacked when she was asked to do the VIP catering for this event. She suspected it had more to do with the estate management than the laird himself. She had a sudden urge to kick Drummond right in the canopies, but shoved the thought deep inside her for the sake of her fledgling business. Crippling your most prestigious customer was not a sensible career move, whatever the provocation. She was, however, about to throw him from her kitchen, that was her fiefdom, not his, when, with a final sneer, he disappeared in search of more pressing matters. If memory served her, these would probably involve a bottle of whiskey. "Are you okay?" Jamie, her sous chef, stood beside her, frowning. "Peachy." Kirsty tried for bravado, which made her feel better. She stuck out her chest. "Nothing is going to ruin today." Jamie smiled. "That's the ticket." She hurried back to her cooking station. Kirsty turned back to the tartlets, wondering if she should whip up an extra batch. She had enough pastry to do another 50, but was that going overboard? She cling-filmed the dough and popped it aside. She could decide later. Too many tarts might not spoil the broth, but they would take up too much room. The motto in Mobile Kitchen is enough, because there's no space for more. She took a step backwards and crashed into someone. Swivelling, she faced the scowling face of Hamish Duffy. "Stupid bitch, can't you mind where you're going?" Rapidly re-evaluating her decision to temporarily hire her old rival, she snapped, "Watch your tone." Then, remembering the reason he needed the gig, his Michelin star restaurant failed following a vile and scandalous review from Alistair Drummond, something to do with rats and cockroaches if memory served, she softened her voice. "We all need to get on if we're to pull this off. I know nerves are frazzled, but this is neither the time nor the place." His scowl faded, although it was still a mile short of a smile. Aye, from Hamish that was as good as an apology. He took the word taciturn to a whole new level of tack and turn. Never famed for being voluble, the ruining of both his restaurant and reputation turned his meagre talkative tap right off. A soupçon of doubt crept into her thoughts. What if this all went a bit Pete Tong? Her bravado waved cheerily to her as it dashed out the door, making her stomach churn as fear wrapped its icy fingers around her midriff. With an event this big, failure was not an option, or hers would be the next business going out of business. She mentally shrugged and pulled on her big chef's pants. This was not the time to be doubting herself. "You were born for such a time as this, Kirsty, my girl." She reached for her copy of the Minute by Minute, took a deep breath, and straightened her apron. The clock whizzed around as she darted from kitchen to marquee and back again. The marquee looked stunning, with tables and chairs bedecked with ribbons and ancient McLaren tartan. Candelabras were ready for lighting, silver cutlery gleamed even in the shade, and each place held a crisply starched napkin and a tartan Faber bag filled with freshly baked shortbread. No expense was being spared. It was the event of the year. Deciding it might be worth making another batch of burnt treacle tartlets, the likelihood was they would ask for more. She rolled out the pastry, popped it into tins, and pulled out the ingredients for the filling. Within minutes, they were in a saucepan, and she was stirring like a whirling dervish. It was almost done when she heard a crash from the general direction of the marquee. She turned off the gas under the saucepan, adding a mix was not going to help the day go well, and leapt out the door. As she feared, one of the temporary waitstaff had tripped over a blade of grass and was lying on the ground, groaning amidst a tsunami of broken teacups. Thankful she'd hired way too many cups, and realising the young girl could not have been carrying more than a few, she bent towards her. "Are you okay?" The first aiders appeared as if by magic and declared nothing more than her pride was hurt. The girl, Morag, said, "Sorry, miss." Kirsty reassured her that all was good and headed back towards the treacle tarts. She grabbed the spoon to give it a good mix, and her eyebrows drew together. "Who's used my filling?" There were several cries of, "Not me, chef." Her voice rose. "This is not funny. Not ever, but certainly not today." Everyone looked as innocent as a newborn, so she quickly made up as many tartlets as she could. She glanced at her Apple Watch, a present from her grandfather to say congratulations on the new business, pulled off her apron and dashed towards the catering tent. She needed an update from Morven Shaw, her events manager. Although efficient, she did seem a tad on the anxious side. Kirsty wasn't quite sure why, as she must be used to high-powered events. A According to her CV, she'd been the manager for several of them. That anxiety had Kirsty on edge and top of every aspect of the day. In fact, she was rapidly wondering why she'd employed an events manager at all. How's it shaping up? Morven chewed on her lip. All going to schedule, but the laird's gone missing. He's meant to give the final sign-off on everything I'm doing. Kirsty wasn't sure why Alistair was all over her business like single cream. Then she remembered the whole shebang was his personal fiefdom and he was entitled to be all over any aspect of it. Has anyone gone to look for him? They putted something out over the tannoy and someone's been up to the castle. More lip chewing. Still no sign. Kirsty took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Despite a secret feeling his absence was no loss, she realised it would be somewhat impossible to move forward without him. She took one step forward in sight of him. Then, like the first act of a Victorian melodrama, a scream rent the air. And I'll stop there.